He gave a really good talk at an event we did in New York a couple of years ago. This is obviously, I know some of you were there, some of the folks here today. So this is kind of a transition onto what his team was doing at Jazz previously there. And I know that we've got this topic that's going to come up in some discussions later on today in panels and so forth as well. But Tim's going to really get things going here. He's obviously a seasoned vet in the marketing space. He's currently with Jazz Pharmaceuticals, the Director of Consumer Marketing. His topic is influencer marketing for healthcare, what you need to know to execute successfully. And interesting fact about Tim, obviously he's based now in San Diego, but he is from the East Coast originally. He has slept on the majority of the museum floor area spaces in Philadelphia. Not by choice, but through, I believe, being a Cub Scout leader of sorts. So, you know, interesting fact, very relevant to the geo that we're in right now. There'll be a little bit of time at the end for Q&A as well, so definitely keep them coming when appropriate. Please join me in welcoming Tim as our next speaker this afternoon.
Simon, we got to tell them what's the difference between then and now. We got beer carts coming in, right? We got like carving stations, right? And those are the New York City thing. Now, sleeping with Cub Scouts families, well, it probably doesn't sound so great, right? No, it was like the parent and the kid. We'd be sleeping in all these museums, the Rocky and all that kind of stuff as these kids would field trips. Fun fact, I am in San Diego now, but there is a big piece of metal across the river that connects coast to coast for me, and that's the Battleship, New Jersey. Almost cut our ship in half back in 1992, late 92. So that's a story for the bar now that you have fulfilled your promise, unlike in New York when I said roll out the bar carts, they didn't have them, but now you have. So Simon, you've upped your game. So thank you for that. I also want to thank our sponsors. Thank you. This isn't possible. I learned a lot of good things this morning from the speakers and sponsors. I know this isn't possible from all of our sponsors, but thank you for being able to make this possible. So, you want to be in Hollywood, okay? You want to work with a celebrity influencer. The challenge I would have for you is, again, as I said before in New York, don't get Kardashian. What has changed? The FTC has a 123-page memo now on working with celebrity endorsements and any kind of endorsement. So we used to be worried about the FDA. The new scary word is FTC. So who's gotten tagged in the meantime because they don't say actual patient, or they don't say this person's not on the drug? Well, we talked about the Kardashians, and yes, another one got hit. This was Khloe. Kim got hit. Serena Williams got hit for overpromising her migraine drug that it worked really quickly. We can bring in, all right, so those of you, I'm going to link this all back. I'm going to link it to the presentations this morning, and I'm going to link it to what you saw on stage. I raised my hand as a Swiftie. I'm an original, all right, long before anybody got on board. But Swiftie's kind of friend with the Kansas City Chiefs, we're not really sure if they're friends, but Brittany Mahomes got tagged with her kids on that injectable EpiPen. All right, so that's another one. Who else did that they're not touching is Simone Biles. Simone Biles and her mom from Mounjaro. It's great. Now on the website they have it, but they haven't touched it because it's an Olympic thing, and then the fact that she is not on Mounjaro, nor is her mom. So there you got a blend of disease awareness and management, which is great, along with the drug. You just have to be very clear. So I'm going to leave you with a few lessons today, but I have to set up the situation. Our drug is a rare drug. It's highly concentrated, FDA-approved CBD. Why does that matter? We're not allowed to advertise because everybody thinks it's marijuana. We're lumped in with the CBD that you could buy at a convenience store or one that you could buy at Quick Check, but we're in South Jersey, one you could buy at Wawa. Okay, so that's the Wawa here. We are not the same. Because of this, a couple years ago, we could not advertise on Meta. So this is Kevin's presentation where he puts up Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest. That's all great. I can't advertise on Pinterest, I found out last week. I've yet to win the battle with Google and be able to get through their filters. TikTok, can't do it. LinkedIn, can't do it. So we're not allowed to reach either our doctors or our consumers on what you saw this morning as a majority of the platforms. So we had to come up with a workaround. I got a secret workaround on Google that they don't know about that I'm not going to share publicly, that I'm allowed to get those hits, okay, that we ingeniously came up with, but that also means YouTube. So we saw YouTube was the #1 search engine, right? Can't do it. So this series, we used to point them to YouTube for a good user experience. Then I point them now to the website on this series. I will just caveat this, that I'm interested during a brewski. Is anybody else feeling the cookie endemic right now? As a brand leader, my website with this cookie thing we only touched on. Before I got involved, and I'm changing the way that the cookie thing pops up because IT did it, and it said, oh, here's your choice. Reject all, accept, or change your preferences. So what happened to my website traffic? 74,000 visits a month. In theory, now I only track 4. Overnight, August 14th. So anything that I'm doing, if you're talking about, Kevin, is I don't even know what I'm doing. I have to back out everything. So now I can't even track the views. So that's a backdrop of what we are. My thoughts for you is if you're going to bring in a Hollywood influencer, a lot of people are doing it. Henry Winkler is doing a macular degeneration. Ryan Reynolds, Acadia Bet the Farm on Ryan Reynolds. And he's there, and everybody's all excited in that company because we were out with them last Saturday night, some friends that work there. If you're going to bring in a celebrity, you got to think through a lot of things. Who, what, where, when, how. You got to think about what your legal and compliance are going to do. You got to think about how long a contract, how in-depth the contract. Is it a one-hit wonder? Or is it going to be a golden album series that you're going to be able to keep that influence over a period of time? We've done the latter, and I'm going to share with you kind of what keeps me up at night over a 5-year journey with a very relatable celebrity, which ties back to who played the character of the female doctor that we had up on the stage this morning, Melissa George. It's all coming around. All these talks we talked about Melissa George. I had to look her up. You're going to see the link of it's like 7 degrees of 7 bacon. This is kind of the world I live in. All right? So one part of this is how long do you own the rights of the material? Keeps me awake at night. I have a 3-year cliff. After 3 years, everything you develop, you got to rip it down. Think of the cost that's going to be. When you're going to bring in any kind of influencer, you better think about what's the longevity of the material. We're always on to the next thing, but it's going to cost us $200,000 to pull this material down. Once you bring them aboard, you got to have rules of the road, do's and don'ts if they're going to do that. You got to think through your media plan, and we'll talk about that. Own, earn, borrowed, paid. Ultimately, you got to go through every channel, and what is your end game? What do you want to get out of this, and when do you want it to end? It's kind of the juxtaposition we're in now is what's next. We think I'm going to share with you kind of what we're doing next, but I don't know what's after that. And now you have a long-term relationship with a pretty influential person in your community, and you've got to end that relationship. I haven't quite got the breakup song down yet, but that's something we have to think about. I'm thinking about it already. All right, so who did we pick? You guys saw on here this morning, it was one of the Jennifer Gardner shows that Melissa was on. I think it was Alias. As I looked her up, she was on Alias, just like Greg Grunberg. So we decided to go years ago with Greg Grunberg. I had to introduce it to my niece's boyfriend. I told him this weekend in upstate New York when I was visiting, and he's like, some Star Wars movie is his favorite. I'm like, you know a guy, Greg Grunberg? No. I show him a picture of this Snap Wepsley. He's got a Lego character. Oh, I know the guy. Right? But in our community, the epilepsy community, people know him. Foundations know him. Yes, he's been in a lot of things. He's starring in a new series, Duster, that J.J. Abrams, big famous producer apparently, has wrote a movie or a series called Duster. So he's going to star in that. So he's going to get his face out there more. He just launched the Pete Rose series. Talk about controversy, talk about Pete Rose dying. He was working on that when I was working with him. And so that's what he's known for. But for us, it's the epilepsy community. I'm leaving up there the TikTok, the old number from last time I talked. I'm up to 7,150 or so epilepsy families on TikTok. I can't advertise on TikTok, but I can through him. So this is where you got to think about. We built that community. But Greg will tell you that's not the most important thing. He's father of Jake. He has a Talk About It podcast that we sponsor, talks about the disease. But Jake and Greg has been advocating for epilepsy and the treatment and the stigma for years. So he's a perfect fit for us. And so what we did is we developed the Caregiver series. Now I'm not just going to tell you about it. I'm going to kind of do a 30-second show to show you if you could play the video on what the Caregiver series is.
I'm Greg Grunberg. I'm an actor and caregiver to my son Jake, who has epilepsy.
You know your child better than anybody.
There are so many families like ours, and I'm back on the road to meet as many as I can. I'm bringing you their incredible stories.
Everything is on you.
of love
I'm so proud of her.
and sacrifice,
The next day I quit my job.
Wow.
while giving them a day to recharge.
Oh my God.
Hey, wait, stop right here.
This is amazing.
Right? This is our time.
This is the caregiver.
All right, so we're going to talk about that and the evolution of that and why that was the basis of everything. If you could go over, I'm going to bring in our second, I don't know if it was his third talk this morning, John or something, that says he hates the word leverage. So I'm going to talk about 5 areas to make the most of. So we're going to go through each of these. His media, we're going to talk about paid, owned media, earned media, advocacy. Big part. Had to go with an advocacy event Friday, got one next Saturday. That's we're in the small, rare world. You better embrace advocacy if you're in the rare disease space. And so we've done that, and we've been able to do a lot of things with him. And then we'll talk a little bit about your internal media, because if you're going to do this and pay a lot of money, you better make the most of it. And how do you leverage it internally? So we talk about Greg's. We developed this series and a series of posts for him to put out there so that I could get on Meta and Facebook and Instagram. It's like 4 different versions, each platform. You have more pieces going through Viva than you can shake a stick at when you're doing this. But we developed a whole series, and we even went into TikTok, right? So you have 6,500. Now, since we did this slide, I didn't bother to change it. It's growing. And so it's working because I'm getting people with epilepsy, and that's my target audience, even if it's in the rare areas. And so we've leveraged for him. The bird is probably not even the bird anymore, right? And I put that up there for theatrical purposes. We've got TikTok, Facebook, and formerly known as. And so the other areas that we've looked at is own and paid. If you're going to do this, how do you multi-channel, omni-channel, talk about everything together that you've got to think through before you start developing it? Because you're going to develop assets, whether it's online communities. We work with them to advertise this. And we're in Nativo, where Alyssa is right here. We have an article in Nativo, right? And so we partnered with one of our partners, have it on there. Do I need new content? Probably. Any video ads that we've done, we talked a little bit about that. Paid advertising or paid content on parents and people. We did that. Social is our biggest play. I can't get into those closed groups, right? That's where my families are on Meta and those closed groups. The rare families, and that's what they do. Our CRM, any other CRM that we do, and don't forget about your Salesforce. Because the Salesforce is out there, so you got to come up with a good story, banners, and all of that, and appearances, because your sales team wants to get involved. Because you've invested a lot of money, you have to get the sales team because they're out there working these events. We happen to go to a lot of epilepsy walks, so it makes sense when our reps are engaging with families appropriately, they have something else to talk about. This is a safe topic to talk about. Talk about earned and sponsored media. I put sponsored because it is. Parents and people, we had a big run. I think you've seen this. If you scan through your USA Today, you see companies that do that. We did a satellite media tour. We're trying to, we start to time this around, asking again around this for Epilepsy Awareness Month that's coming out in a month. So we went on a national tour with that. We got some pretty good statistics. How do we make the most of advocacy? This is where you can't measure it, but now Kari in the middle, who I was with Friday night for the TSC Alliance, she's going to honor Greg. That's going to honor her lifetime in her next event out in Los Angeles that we're doing in April. So they've embraced it, right? It gives me a reason to really work with advocacy. So some of the doors that we've been able to open and work in collaboration with them, because he doesn't need to talk about my product. He's there talking about the stigma of epilepsy with these foundations. And so if we all talk about patient-centric, pull your drug out of it. This is what you can work with them and say, we're in it together. Right? And so that's where we've been able to make a lot of headway, and we continue to make headway, and you can't really measure that. But I know it when I see it. Don't forget about internal. So yeah, bring him to POAs. He loves to go to POAs. Down bottom, I got the CEO, loves to be with him. We got to go to the American Epilepsy Foundation. We're sponsoring in Greg's garage, or his studio. It's in LA, and so we're going to be in Burbank, and he's sponsoring with an advocacy foundation a big advocacy event, right, where they bring in people in buses, and he wants the CEO to play in his band, the band from TV. So people have to look up, who's the band from TV? Yeah, Terry Hatcher was in it, Lester Holt was in it. Now it's a lot of these people, they all kind of hang around together. So you kind of get the Hollywood vibe of, as a group of them that travel around. But then you get the CEO on his podcast. You get advocacy on his podcast, and we're arranging that. So it's more than just the dollars and all the clicks. It's really developing a deeper, purposeful relationship. In these rare communities, they understand that you understand what their families are going through. And that's part of our evolution on this. So here's some words of wisdom, letters of wisdom. You want to be an agent, work with a Hollywood movie star. You got to work when they work. So it's Saturday afternoon, they got a great idea. Guess what? You're no longer sitting by the pool. You're talking to them about their great idea. That's not a bad thing, because if you contract with Jennifer Aniston, she only signs up to do these 4 things. But if you have an open contract and they're involved in it and you pick the right person, they're built into it. They're vested into it and they want to do things. You got to define the boundaries, what's in, what's out, because that leads to Sunday morning. Every Sunday morning I got to go through my social media, and in the beginning you have to call them on Sunday before like noon. Can you pull down this post? I appreciate the enthusiasm, but don't have a hashtag, right? You got to have hashtag ad on a lot of stuff now. Right? If you know the 137 pages or whatever it is of the FTC rules, you got to have that. You got to find a partner. So we've had a partner that helps you manage this. So you have a trusted partner in your agencies to help handle the phone calls for you. But then they also have their own agent. So you establish a relationship with their own agent. And that can, I'm a part travel agent, part did you get your meal in on time? I mean, kind of the weirdest thing is we're in Florida filming with a couple of the families you saw. Those 2 young ladies that you saw there, we went to Florida at a big epilepsy event that we were filming at with the foundation, and I'm walking through one of these Disneyland restaurants. He just met with a family. Bunch of tipsy senior plus ladies come running out to him in the lobby, practically tackle him, and weren't you the guy in Lost? They named his character, and he's looking at me. I'm like, dude, I don't know your movies. Who were you in Lost? Whatever he was in Lost, he's like, oh yeah, I was that character. And I had to get them off. All he kept wanting to do was hug this guy. Very approachable, but they thought I was his bodyguard, right? So you play a lot of roles, and I'm also sit down while he eats, keep him company, because he doesn't want to eat in the main restaurant, right? Because he says he gets killed at baggage claim because everybody recognizes him, and it's at baggage claim because you're standing there with no real purpose like the rest of us. And ultimately, it's kind of the research that you have to do. You got to become a fan of all his latest work, and this is why the new Pete Rose series is downloaded on my iPad for the way home. But I'll give you this. What keeps me awake at night is you want a long-term relationship, what's next? You got a plan. It's always what's next. And so what we did is a 5-year journey. You saw the first part of it where we sponsored a video series on YouTube, and I'll give you the results and all of that in a second. But really, it's people telling stories about their journey on our drug. So that's how I got our drug on there. The first episode didn't have the drug name, no ISI. The other 2 or 3 did. Then we went into about a 1.5 years of Share the Care, which we had a pretty public relations campaign with foundations and their people and their heads of leadership talking about the caregivers need to be cared for as well. Now we're moving into the third thing that we're in the scripts and might film before Christmas. We couldn't pull it off before the meeting that I have to go to, and he wants the CEO to play at the American Epilepsy Foundation with him. But we ran out of time, but it's going to be, he's on our website. What we found, the basis of getting on here is to get people to see our drug on Meta and Google and YouTube. That's the real purpose. We've gone a little roundabout with the Share the Care. We're bringing it back to brand. And so he's actually going to talk on behalf of our brand, talk about what it's like to have a productive conversation with your doctor. He goes through it too. He knows what it's like, the frustrations. We're going to interview doctors, going to interview caregivers. He's going to talk about our drug, and then we'll house that on our website, safely on our website. So it's a little bit of an adventure for us, but it's kind of what's next. All right? What's next after that? I have no idea. Right? I don't. And I'm like, relationship may have to end after that, after so long. All right? So how do we do? Did we get the results? Yeah. Lots of views, lots of shares on all the platforms that we did. Our website views, this is the pre-cookie world, right? Went up a bunch. Our YouTube videos went up. And then I got asked a couple years ago, what awards have you won? I'm happy to say as of last Tuesday, yes, we are platinum winner with the Marcom Awards for 2 areas, web-based video on YouTube and social media influencer content, right? So then you got to buy the trophies, apparently. So that's what I have an agency for. You know, I played the game and we put these videos together, but now we got to buy the trophies because my CEO in our office in Carlsbad wants trophies in his office, right? Along with Palo Alto. So guess what? I got to buy 2 trophies. He wants these awards. We did come up as a finalist in the PM Society, which was pretty good. And then we also were a finalist in MedAd News, which hit this earlier this year, for patient engagement But I'll tell you the interesting one where it comes all around that I already talked about today. Can you guess who I was tied with as a finalist for the best influencer marketing campaign for MedAd News? We didn't win, nor did this person. It was Travis Kelce's Two Things at Once campaign. I mean, he didn't win, and he's dating Taylor Swift, so I don't feel that bad, right? But ultimately, why do we do what we do? I'll leave you with this. It's the families and the impact that we make on the families and the relationships he develops with them and the gifts he sends them as he connects with our real world families that spreads throughout. When I had my ambassadors in this summer in San Diego for our ambassador summit, they couldn't speak highly enough of kind of the work that we've done and how genuine he was. So pick smart, pick right. All right, so I'll leave you this. The most important thing, totally forgot to do it. We were doing all this digital talk, right? And here I am, right after lunch. Simon's got to say it's hot in here, right? Pick a URL if you're going to do this. I totally forgot that. The most important thing is we have the caregiverseries.com. Smartest thing I ever did was just grab 3 URLs from, $50 or whatever they cost, because you need something for these celebrities to point back to, and you have to get that first, because then you can build everything around it. That's the most important thing. Second thing is realizing once all the Hollywood excitement, and I saw Acadia go through this, young lady that we know who works there with Ryan Reynolds, and the CEO announced it. And it's all, once that all dies down, you're past the Hollywood honeymoon, it's just work. They're normal people, and it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And the last is you have to be 1 step, 1 month, 1 year ahead of where you're going. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Great talk. And a couple of minutes for questions if anybody wants to chime in and jump. I know we've got a panel later, Evan, that we're going to sort of dissect this topic further, but that was a great...
I nailed that with 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
So first off, awesome presentation. And just a quick question on the last suggestion you had there. So you talked about grabbing a URL or 2 or 3. What are the advantages from your perspective of doing that over creating a page or at least kind of like a microsite or maybe even doing it within your own domain for your company? Kind of capturing the SEO value and,
So we can point the URL to wherever we want, right?
Yeah.
The most important thing is when they're on that media tour, it gives them something to say. So when you have advertising, we have them sign coasters at events, a picture of him, the caregiver, he signs it and it has the URL that people can go to. But we pointed it to YouTube for user experience for the first go around. So he was on TV when we did the media tour. He said, go to thecaregiverseries.com. Pretty easy to remember, right? And that's what he could say over and over and over again. Don't make it too hard. Ryan Reynolds is like a mouthful of Acadia. But they pointed him to a page. We decided not to do a page. We could have pointed thecaregiverseries.com to a page. We decided at first to go for the user experience, but I couldn't track it as well. But we just wanted a good user experience because I needed to get the drug out there. Then we said, let's point them to the website. Kind of a conscious effort. We fought for 6 months on, because, well, where are they going on the website? Pre-cookie, all right? Pre-cookies, all right? And then we said we can go to the website, we can kind of track through there. My ultimate thought is, as a marketer, do you really go and look where everybody goes and follow? We don't. We have agencies try to help us with that. But that's a conscious effort to point them. If we wanted a micro page, that's something that we could do too. But we decided not to have a whole separate thing because the content is kind of more of a video series, right? And that's why we decided to do it that way. Yeah, but you want to point to whatever you need to point to, right? Even if it's your Facebook page. And we decided not to do a Facebook page here because we were advertising through his. Because we probably wouldn't have been. We advertised it on our Facebook page through posts, but all the boosting that we did was all through him. So he put the post, my agency would put it in there, and that whatever the dashboard thing is, and I'd pay $8,000 each post. And they're like, we're not going to boost every one. I'm like, do you know how much it costs to do this series? You're going to spend $8,000 and boost every post and boost it again, right? So this is when you tell the agency what to do, all right? And that was well worth it because then we drove enough traffic.
Thanks.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, so I'm all right. Running around that way.
Right.
Sam, this is where we bust open the doors and that beer
I know.
cart would come in, man. But you put me in there after lunch, man. I couldn't convince him Friday night on text when I was bidding on a baseball bat for this guy at the fundraiser, Pete Rose's baseball bat, to say, put me at the end.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Excellent work working with the celebrity. I was just wondering if you could share some of the performance metrics from some of his best posts. So, for example, is that going to be on Facebook? Is that going to be on like what specific channel? And which posts did the best? And can you explain why?
Sure. So for us, because our families are on Facebook and Meta, that was the best return. We really don't follow X as much. He puts it on there. We don't pay for performance on X. We don't boost on there because we had done X before with another project, and our families aren't really there. His Star Wars followers are on X, so we knew that. We tested that with that. And so a lot of it, we're happy as we get shares and comments, right? We get a lot of comments, and so I get the report every day through ICUC, sends me here's that everybody posted on Greg's posts. And so really those were our best. We are going to move to Reddit because Reddit changed. So everybody knows Reddit has a new pharma-friendly page, and so then we're going to repurpose those ads. Again, I spent so much money on this. The company wants us to, it doesn't cost that much to bring them back, but those two ads, it was really views, video views. We showed significant amount, as I saw the increase, but really our immediate lead indicator was, we had to go a surrogate, likes and comments on Facebook, knowing that not everybody likes, but we got engagement. So that's what kept us satisfied with our performance.
Yeah, just kind of from a brand standpoint, and this is obviously advocacy, awareness, engagement, it's kind of top of funnel, but did you see the uptake that you wanted, or did you, what were you expecting kind of from a brand perspective? And
yeah, it was kind of brand recognition. When I look at my top video views and I see that it's the video 2 goes into the brand, and we saw the number of views. Like we never can equate it to a script lift. You just can't get in there. We'll try it with our CTV that we just launched. But it was really kind of how many people are watching, continuing to watch, so you can count the numbers and go through some of the brand. In video 2, wham, they get the brand right away. Because if they're not going to go, they open the video, and it's like, oh, this video is 7 minutes long. No, it's not. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the rest of it is the talking head. And so that's what we looked at. If we could get like 25% of the second video where they got the brand, then we were satisfied as a brand, and we were going to increase the awareness. This is an awareness play. It's not a consideration conversion play or a retention play. It was kind of our awareness top of funnel play.
Okay, any final questions for Tim? Yes. Sorry.
So celebrity endorsements goes back a long time, and I don't know if Greg's A-list, but I think of like Magic Johnson and HIV, and you mentioned Jennifer Aniston. Is there certain challenges associated with, if you want to tier them or say, name recognition and the value they're going to bring or the recognition they're going to bring versus a guy like John from before, a real patient who is not a Hollywood person?
Yeah. Our biggest learn is like linking to the community. Okay, so I brought up before Henry Winkler, macular degeneration, whatever, right? Henry, it's his father-in-law or something like this. Not really, he doesn't affect his family. Greg's kid, Jake, has epilepsy. Is he on our drug? Yes. Do we talk about that? No, because he doesn't have that indication. And so it's relatability that we went for as opposed to a big star that may not be as connected with it. He's connected with the community, so that was worth more for us. And then partly you're the big celebrity. They're not going to give you this open contract. My contract with Greg is 2 pages long. As scary as that is, it doesn't say you'll give me 6 posts, 3 events. I tell him, you're flying to Disney. You're flying to Disney. Okay, I'm going to Disney to Purple Day in Disney, right? He'll do it. So it's very open like that. You've got to be comfortable with that. But he is, by having him so passionate about it, he's willing to do those extra things. And he posts more than we create. Because all these influencers think you got to be seen every day. You don't. There's a balance, maybe once a week. Right, but they constantly have to think that they're relevant, and we have to slow them down on posting every day. Right, so that's kind of the challenge is managing that, managing over-enthusiasm, whereas I know Ryan was like a kind of a one and done. Like, now what? Now we can do them, right? It's great, wonderful, but how do you kind of sustain that?
Right. Cool. Well,
all right.
Thanks very much, Tim.
You got it. Thanks, everybody.
Wonderful. Right. We're